Hey everyone, right now I get the lucky opportunity to have an interview with Scott Snyder about his new book, The Batman Who Laughs, a book that we have all been super excited about and we've been just amped up for ever since the DC Metal. The Batman Who Laughs is one of my favorite villains right next to Red Death, who came out of that event, so to see that he gets his own book and to see how he's going to mess with the DC universe is something that I have just been excited for a while. So for those individuals who may not have actually tracked DC Metal or tracked anything going on, would you like to explain real quick who and what the Batman Who Laughs is?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on again, man. It's great to talk to you, Benny. I appreciate it.
Oh, it was so much fun. And everyone loved it last time. They loved how you just spoiled everything going on with Justice League.
I'm going to do it again. I literally just came from a summit. I have some good family stuff going on right now, so I can't travel. So a lot of DC folks actually came to my little town for a summit. So I'm like fresh out of my meeting with all of our whiteboards, and we planned everything through 2021. So I'm in like full spoiler mode. So I have plenty of stuff I can spoil for you as we go forward. But
it's a good thing we didn't do our original meeting then before you had your summit, where you wouldn't have a lot of spoilers.
And I know, and all my bosses are actually on the planes right now, so they have no access to me. There's no hook. So I'm full rogue. But yeah, so the Batman Who Laughs, he basically was our big villain in the summer event we did in the previous summer called DC Metal. And in that event, we imagine that there's a realm of our multiverse called the Dark Multiverse, made of dark matter. And essentially, it's a place where all of our hopes and worst nightmares live. These worlds kind of bubble up based on our dreams and our nightmares. And so he is Batman's absolute worst nightmare. And so the nightmare is that one day Joker will go too far, Batman will cross the line and kill him, only to discover that the Joker's heart contains a super toxin that will make whoever kills him the next Joker. And so on that world, Batman becomes infected, kills the whole Bat family, kills everything alive on the world, and becomes sort of the apex predator of the multiverse. And so in the event, Metal, the kind of big lord of that realm, takes that Batman, places him in our world, and so he's been running around ever since. But because Metal was such a kind of monster event about the Justice League and the Source Wall and the Fourth World, just everything, I didn't have the opportunity to really drill down and pit him against Batman in a very dark and gritty way. So all the way back then, in early 2017, when we were planning, I asked DC if I could get the chance to write a miniseries about him if he was popular during Metal, and so luckily he was, and DC agreed, and so this is something I've been waiting to do for a really long time, series. And, I knew I was going to do it with Jock, who I did my first Batman stuff with, Black Mirror and Detective Comics. And I want it to be like a return to our roots. He is a horror character. This is this dark, scary story where he comes to Gotham and he basically has a plan to show Batman why he's the nightmare Batman, meaning like why Bruce Wayne, our Bruce Wayne, is actually a nightmare and sort of the wrong Batman for the job, and how everything he's done in his life is wrong. And the scary thing about Batman Who Laughs is that he is Bruce Wayne. So, for example, spoiler, like in issue 2, for example, it opens with Bruce talking about how he remembers the night his parents were killed. The biggest memory he has, or the biggest sort of emotional echo of that, is he remembers his father's hand over his own heart as Joe Chill raises the gun. And he remembers how sad it was that his father knows, a hand won't protect a child from a bullet, but his father still reached and tried to protect Bruce's heart from the gun. And at one point, when the Batman Who Laughs faces off with Bruce, later he has him down, he has him shot. The Punisher Batman, that's his henchman, the Grim Knight, kind of takes Batman down. And Batman Who Laughs puts his hand over Bruce's heart, and he's like, I want you to know something. I remember the night our father was killed too, and I remember his hand on our heart. And that's what you are. The city is a heart, and you're just a weak old man's hand trying to protect it from a bullet. And I'm the gun. So he's like, see you, Bruce. And then he blows up half the city and kind of walks out. So, I mean, he is a nightmare character to write, and he's so fun for that reason. Because even when I was doing the Joker has certain limitations that are both part of him being kind of a classic DC villain. So there's sort of restrictions around certain things. And I think also he has a really core set of values, at least our version of him, that prevent him from doing things that aren't trying to prove a point to Batman. And this guy, he's not really trying to prove a point. He's here just to win. He's the living embodiment of the idea that Batman always wins. He's essentially Batman with all of his ethics removed, all of his codes of conduct removed, and anything he sees as a threat, from animal, man, or God, he has 100 ways to kill it. So he's extremely fun to write, extremely nefarious, and it's a series that I've been dying to do. So I'm really excited to see what everybody thinks of it.
Well, you said at the beginning of what you just said that you were hoping that he was going to be popular. Did you really think a version of Batman and Joker mixed in any way, shape, or form was not going to be popular with Batman fans?
Well, you never know. Like, you hope, when we did the Owls or you do any of it, you hope that it's going to catch on. But, you kind of put on the horse blinders and just go for it and go with good faith and assume that at the end of the day, the only compass I have is that these are my favorite characters. I love Batman to death. He's my favorite character in literature. And so I hope that something I think is cool, other people will think is cool. But you can never guess. But I feel so grateful to people for being so crazy support. Every con I go to, there's like 4 Batman who laughs. The funniest thing, though, is that, he can see, by the way. That's the question I get the most, because he has a visor with spikes and everyone's like,
yeah.
He see. You'll learn in issue 3 what that visor is for and how he sees. But the funniest is people cosplay him and they can't see. So they're always being like led around by people, but it's so endearing where I'm like, you care that much about the character that you're willing to like blindly be led through a big con just to come up and take a picture. So, and even I did a signing last night and somebody like brought like, they make like clay toys of him. And, DC was saying that if they did this crazy thing when we did the Joker story, they made this lawn ornament of our Joker, which is like my favorite thing, scares off like every neighbor and every kid. And they were like,
that must have been great during Halloween.
This way, maybe they'll make one of him. And so it's so overwhelming that people have responded to him the way they have. And we're really grateful, me and Jock and Dave Barron, everybody on the book. And Greg, too. I mean, Greg's the one that developed him, Capullo. He just knocked it out of the park with it. He loves drawing him, too. So it's a lot of fun.
So, okay, so let's go to because I've gotten the chance to read the story ahead of time, so I do know what happened in that one. Let's go back to this. First off, the Batman, the Grim Knight, I think he's called in that one, with the guns and everything like that. Are we going to get much more on him? Because he does remind me of the Injustice run when we saw the Batman with all the guns. So when I first saw him, that was the first thought I got. Now, that turned out to be Jason Todd, and we discovered all that later on. I'm assuming that's not the direction you're going with it. It's got to be a different character.
No. For anyone picking up the book, essentially the plot of Batman Who Laughs, it opens with Bruce on a big detective case where he's trying to bust this smuggling ring, and he believes they're smuggling unclaimed bodies out of Gotham for different kinds of experiments, and he busts open one of their trucks and finds a dead Bruce Wayne, an exact sort of version of himself who's about 10 years older than him, and seems on his world to have been married and had children, and that begins our mystery. And so the reason I'm bringing it up is because this story is largely about a kind of prismatic look at Bruce. And Batman Who Laughs, while he doesn't care if our Batman believes him or not, or care, he is not here to prove anything to him. But part of what he's about is he deeply believes that Batman's meant to be something else. I mean, the bat, as corny as this sounds, it's a thought I had when I was on Batman, that the bat is one of the only animals that, mammals, that flies. And there's something inspirational in the idea that it's a creature that helps us believe in the impossible, right? And so if Batman is meant to be something that teaches us how to evolve, Batman Who Laughs believes that our Bruce Wayne is the lamest and worst version of that, the most false idol. And he's like, cross over to where I am and you'll see exactly why every other version of you is better than you. And so that's why the Grim Knight, for example, is Bruce's second worst nightmare. So actually, I was going to use him in metal. We had him on the board, the design and everything. And I was honestly worried he would overpower the other Dark Knights in a way that would make him sort of stand out above them. And then ultimately, it would get too crowded. So I decided I'd save him for this story, and that the Batman Who Laughs has had him hidden somewhere, and he's had a purpose until now. And we are actually, I don't know if we've announced this yet, but we're doing a one-shot with him with really special art after issue 3 of the Batman Who Laughs. So you'll learn what happened to him between Metal and now and what his whole origin is. But essentially it begins with Joe Chill shooting Bruce's parents and running away and dropping the gun. And young Bruce Wayne picks it up, and that starts his whole career as kind of, Batman of lethal force. And he's just nonstop. I mean, even when the bat comes to the window, when he decides to be Batman, he shoots it before it gets to the window. But
that sounds like just a hilarious moment, like the bat that would inspire him. And he's like, no.
Yes, he's like, yes, father, I shall become a bat. And there's a lot of there's a scene from Year One where he goes in Batman Year One. If you haven't read it, anybody out there, there's a famous scene where Bruce goes to all the kind of bigwigs in Gotham, and it's the first time they ever see Batman, and he's like, "You've all dined well." on Gotham and become fat. Well, no more. And he closes this kind of barbecue thing so it goes dark and leaves. And in our version, he goes in and says all that and then burns all of them. And he's like, and kills all of them. So the thing about this Bruce isn't really the guns, although he certainly has a big arsenal. It's that on his world, he's Bruce Wayne. He's a multi-billion-dollar industrialist, and so he has chips in your phone, in your car, in your GPS, in plane. I mean, he makes things that are joints and air conditioning systems all over Gotham, for example. So if he wanted to kill you, he could just poison your apartment and you wouldn't know who did it. Or your car might just drive off a bridge because he'll rig your GPS from the Batcave and you'll never know he killed you. So he's the deadliest man ever. He's the deadliest Dark Knight by far. And should he hook into Gotham's systems here, Bruce will be in a lot of trouble. So by issue 2, that begins to happen. And the reason we wanted to bring him in, one, I just think this is a story about Bruce's nightmares. It's about sort of versions of him that make him look in the mirror and say, am I doing this right? Am I supposed to be somebody else? Is there something wrong with me that these nightmares that I have keep coming to life? And so he's really scary. I mean, he's not meant to be lauded, or he's not sort of there's nothing redeeming about the Grim Knight. He's a character you'll see that's quite tragic, and yet he's a very, very formidable foe. So he's a lot of fun to write, as is the Batman Who Laughs. But I mean, Bruce is in a lot of trouble with both of them in town.
Gotcha. So recently we've been hyping up the Batman Who Laughs because he's been in Justice League. He's popped up in the Legion of Doom. Joker in the latest issue of Legion of Doom, aka Justice League, pretty much said, I'm scared of him. Like, I don't want him around. I don't know if he outright said I'm scared, but that was pretty much the vibe everyone was getting from the way it was written.
Yeah.
And then obviously in this one we get more of the Joker. Are we going to find out more how the Joker left the Legion of Doom and prepared all of the decoys and got ready for all of this and knew it was happening? Yeah,
well, one of the big things for us is, and it's a strange line to walk, but we're really adamant about it, is that I want you to be able to pick up this series, really, if you've read nothing else, if you're not reading Justice League, even if you hadn't read Metal, really, and find it to be something that's very singular and individuated, and a book that's special. I mean, I'm really giving this one a lot. It's very personal to me. Bruce's first memory, actually, on the very first page, where he asks the reader, what is your happiest memory? And it opens with him telling what his is. And that's actually my first memory, and the one I associate the most with childhood happiness. And it's a book that when I have an artist like Jock, who I'm very good friends with, and with Greg as well, but Jock's style also allows for a rawness of emotion, where I can go really right at the things that are my anxieties, my fears, my hopes, and just put them baldly on the page. And so this series is deeply, deeply personal to me. So I want you to be able to pick it up and find something totally standalone and special. At the same time, to speak to your question, like I was saying, we just put up this big sort of machine that is the DC line over the next 2 years. And there's a big Uber story that began with Metal that we pitched all the way back then. It goes from Metal, the source wall breaks, the Batman Who Laughs is on the loose. No Justice picks up with that. Justice League picks up with the heart of the source wall falling to Earth, and the heroes and villains vying over this, the Legion of Doom and the Justice League trying to vie for kind of the biggest source of power in the history of the multiverse. And the Batman Who Laughs, as much as it kind of exists to the side and seems like a standalone, you can read it as a standalone. It will have, I promise, repercussions that wind up setting in motion very big things that then spin forward into the summer and into the fall, and go into even series we haven't announced yet that are coming out, and we will announce soon for summer. So in that way, like what you're saying, you will find out all of the kind of peripheral information about how he got from point A to point B. There'll be references in Justice League. You'll see stuff in Legion of Doom. He'll come back in certain ways. But you can pick up this book and be like, I don't need to know anything. It's a book that's a deep meditation on Bruce's happiness and his, I think, deep anxieties about, whether or not he's doing this right.
See, I find that really fascinating. And it must be a big challenge for you to write a book that is going to be incorporated so heavily into everything that's happening, but still you can just read it and you don't have to worry about it and you don't have to go, I got to buy 1,000 tie-ins and things like that. Do you find that to be a huge challenge to make it like that, or is it come naturally to you?
Yeah, well, I've developed the different muscles at this point, but it is a challenge. I mean, you have to really switch gears. I mean, the thing that's so interesting to me about doing Justice League is that I am trying to make it so that each arc feels somewhat singular and you can pick it up arc to arc, like Drowned Earth, or we're doing an arc right now called Hawk World, where 3 of the characters return to Thanagar and learn secrets that, so it is sort of arc by arc, and we want there to be clear delineations. But it's more of a run than I've ever done, a kind of like Hickman-esque, 50-issue story that plays out over 2 years. I mean, you'll see all of the threads. They're Easter eggs in issue 1, the smiling sun, the things that are there that wind up coming out in issue 35, issue 40. So those muscles are actually quite new to me. Even when I was on Batman, I always thought I was going to get fired after every arc. So I was like, how did I land this dream gig? I wrote every arc like it was the only thing I'd ever get to write on Batman. I tried to swing for the fence with each one as a singular book. And a lot of the time I do one and then just you wouldn't see anything from that again next, because I was so focused on just doing one thing before I thought they'd kick me off. But then when I settled in, by the end of Batman and now, I got to start to flex muscles that are much more sort of rolling, sequential, causal sort of narrative muscles. And so Justice League is one thing like that. And then Batman Who Laughs really is meant to be singular. So it's so fun because they're just different, totally different takes. But it is challenging. I can't do them on the same week, for example. I have to really...
Okay.
The Office knows I have like 2 weeks on Justice League, 2 weeks on Batman Who Laughs. I'm doing a book called Last Night on Earth with Greg Capullo that's kind of our Batman 20 years in the future. And I need like 2 week delineation, 2 week blocks, and to make it really modular, or my brain just kind of short circuits on it otherwise.
It starts blending everything together and you forget what went with what and things like that?
Yeah, well, it really is like just different energies. I know it sounds hokey, but like when I do Batman Who Laughs, it goes to a dark place and it's really personal, and it's really, each issue is very crafted in a way that it has a kind of circularity. So the second issue, for example, it begins with him talking about how so many cultures, each issue is framed around a different sort of idea of where happiness lives for us. Does it live in the body? Does it live in the mind? Does it live in the heart? Does it live in our hopes and fears? And he tells different kind of folkloric stories about this, or talks about memories. And so there's a lot of sort of personal, digging with Batman Who Laughs. And that's the kind of thing where if I have to do that, and then in the same day or two, letter a Justice League script where it's like, and then, the Absorbiscon at the heart of Thanagar Prime is allowing the Dominators to find Krypton. I just like, it really is just like, I can't, it just short circuits, and they cross wires, and everything comes out badly. So when I can kind of go into a cave of each thing, it's one of the joys. I mean, it's why I love doing creator owned also, is, you go from one project to another and you explore as a writer. It makes me feel like I'm growing as a writer to have very different areas to go to and try different things that I haven't tried. Because Batman Who Laughs, to go back to it, I mean, it's definitely like a return to roots, and it's a return to kind of the stuff that we did on Black Mirror, and there's links to that book, and it's kind of a spiritual echo or successor of that. If not, it's not a direct sequel, but it has a lot of the same, I think, a lot of the same sort of elements. But it's really new also for me, meaning I'm bringing in elements that are cosmic. I'm bringing in elements that are really openly personal. I'm bringing in elements that are from, the dark multiverse and nightmarish kind of aspects of Bruce. So it's a really gritty detective story, but unlike Black Mirror, it has elements that are multiversal and really nightmarishly Jacob's Ladder and kind of, out there as Batman gets farther and farther down this rabbit hole. So the idea is to try to have every project make you exciting to you as a writer. For any aspiring writers out there, that to me, that's the goal, is that everything you work on is pushing you somewhere you're slightly uncomfortable with, because it's a new territory. And if I bleed those together and try and work in the same, area too quickly, it just doesn't work for me.
No, I can totally picture that, because with the dramatic readings I do for a lot of the comic books, it normally I have to do the exact same thing, separate my brain with the moods, because we'll do like an Aquaman epic story, and then we'll do like a horror story, and then we'll do and I can't do them back to back without like a lot of I have to separate, I have to change like music that's going on in my head and things like that. So I get where you're going. You got to get your headspace in the right thing, or it all kind of blends together and doesn't look or sound right to you.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So let's talk about the cliffhanger. I mean, I've been going around the bush on that, because that cliffhanger at the end of issue 1. So for those who may not have read it yet, I'm just going to go ahead and say,
Spoiler.
My camera guy is currently walking out of the office, so he doesn't hear it. But the spoiler, it's a huge spoiler. But Joker rises out of the water. Batman obviously knew he was going to be there.
Right.
And then Joker seemingly kills himself to spread the virus to Batman. So we have two Batman Who Laughs? Or is this going to be like, because I remember the original origin story, we saw the slow transition until he finally just turned on the Bat family.
Right.
Can you elaborate any more on this, or is this where we are?
Sure, I'm happy to. Well, I wanted to be really careful about also. I never want to, for lack of a better word, term, I guess, take advantage of the fans and be like, because there's a world in which we could have been like, the Joker dies, and sell as many issues as you can off that. But I'm happy to spoil it and be like, obviously, I'm not killing the Joker in issue 1 of Batman Who Laughs in a final way that would I wouldn't pretend to do that unless if we were really doing that, I would give it the sort of story that it warranted. Here,
I would find it very odd if you killed the Joker right before the 3 Jokers came out. Just like
right, the 0 Jokers, right?
Yeah, now we have 0 Jokers, so whatever.
Yeah, well, no, and so by issue 2, Batman takes every single Joker antitoxin that he has, and one of the opening images is Alfred trying to save the Joker in the cave, even though he keeps trying to let him die. And Bruce is like, I see what you're doing. Stop it, Alfred. Alfred's like, what would be so bad, Bruce, about it? He's dying anyway. And he's like, This man will not die in our care. And he's like, Alfred is just really, it's such a fun scene to write because it's, Alfred having to save the Joker's life, even though the Joker is so close to death, is a lot of fun. And then he's in the cave with his heart open. But Bruce essentially takes every Joker antitoxin possible, and it's still not staving off this infection. It's just giving him a ticking clock. So as the story moves forward, his point of view becomes more and more twisted and more nightmarish and sort of akin to the Batman Who Laughs view. So I wanted something that would really allow me to go crazy dark. And, there is no cure as of issue 2, issue 3 for this thing that's happening to Bruce. And so he's desperately trying to find a way out of this spiral down into becoming his own worst nightmare. And at the same time, he's trying to stop the Batman Who Laughs even more than he's trying to save himself. And so it becomes a journey down a really dark spiral, which is, really fresh and new and fun for me to write. Because Batman, I've never gotten to write Batman that way, where he's just so unsure of himself. I mean, to me, in our mythology, or at least in my mythology, Batman Who Laughs is like, I can't think of a more final villain, and our Batman feels that way. When Batman Who Laughs comes up against him, he's like, Alfred, this is me. Like, he has all my training, all my memories, and none of my weaknesses, meaning all the things that I love are vulnerabilities that he's already planned out ways of killing. And he doesn't have anything he loves. How am I supposed to stop this guy? He's as fast and strong, and all of it is me, and knows all of my hiding spots and everything. And so it really is sort of, a trip down the darkest, most final kind of challenge. And, I wouldn't come back to Gotham and do a Batman story unless I could do something like that at this point. So him really transforming and becoming more and more like the Batman Who Laughs, even as he's trying to stop him, is a very big and sort of, I think, rich part of the story for me.
You talk about how it's much of a darker story, and I know the Black Label had a whole bunch of things happen recently, but at any point were you considering making this a Black Label book so you can really push the envelope?
Yeah, I was. Honestly, I thought about doing it as a standalone, but the truth of the matter is, Black Label is really a place. It's not a place where you go to do salacious stuff or go. I know that there was controversy about the bat dick and all that stuff. The thing
I was trying to avoid saying it, but yeah.
Well, no, but the thing about that book was that really nobody that worked on that book. Azzarello and Lee Bermejo are the last 2 people that would try and P.T. Barnum a book by putting in excessive nudity. It really was something I think they thought was just to show Bruce vulnerable, and they didn't even give it a second thought. And unfortunately, I think it became a really big distraction. That said, Black Label is really a place to go to be able to tell stories that don't need to fit into continuity. So what I'm doing with Greg Capullo, for example, our Black Label book, it's dark and there's a lot of violence, but our Batman was pretty violent, and this is pretty violent. And we had Joker with his face hanging off his face, hooked on, and whatever. So
that's my favorite Joker by far. Reattaching his own face. It's just like that is so twisted.
So I did think about making it a Black Label book simply to have the kind of space to do it, but when I realized, what, it's a really big part of the plans we have at DC that I didn't want to remove it. And honestly, I feel like I'm getting to do it exactly as I wanted anyway. I mean, there's a scene in issue 2 where Batman Who Laughs essentially takes a secret elevator up Wayne Tower. And the guy who runs this elevator was somebody who was in a Penguin attack a long time ago. He's an old man and he's blind. And he hears Bruce coming and he's like, "Oh, hi, Bruce." And it's Batman Who Laughs because he has his voice. He has the same voice, And Batman Who Laughs is in the elevator going up to these secret floors where there are all these guards he's about to kill. And Bill, the elevator man, is like, "I just want to thank you again. The pacemaker, everything. Thank you." And he's like, "How are you doing, Bill? How's your family?" And as he's saying this, he's opening his coat. And in his coat is like every horrifying, sharp weapon tool that he's going to use to, take out everybody up there. And Bill's like, "Oh, they're great. My son." And Batman Who Laughs like, "How's your son? How's your daughter?" And he's like, "Oh, they're great." He's like, "I just want to thank you again, Mr. Wayne. You're one of the good guys." And then the elevator doors ding and open, and he's like ready to kill everybody. And he's like, "Thanks, Bill. That means a lot." And I was like, I think I'm okay without Black Label. You know what I mean? Like, I'm getting to do the kind of emotional, psychological, and plot darkness that I want. And the one promise I would make too is that, I've tried to always walk a line carefully about. I don't want the books to be sensationally violent or sensationally dark. And even when I'm going to the blackest places, like with Death of the Family or with this book in particular, which is equally dark, if not darker than that, I never want you to feel like we're doing it just for shock or for surprise. I always want the first thing you feel is that it's emotional violence, emotional horror, psychological horror, and the physical stuff is almost an afterthought. And it's earned overwhelmingly by what the characters are going through. So that's my hope. And I as much as I kind of get gleeful about some of the scenes that we get to do because they're so vicious, the reason I feel okay with them and get excited about them is because I feel there's a level of emotional and psychological terror throughout the thing that winds up hopefully not only earning those things, but making them feel relevant and resonant.
Gotcha. All right. Well, because we're talking about this issue right here. Do you have anything that you want to spoil to get people hyped up while you're kind of showing us the variant covers? Because I know you brought those variant covers over.
Yeah, dude. I have
and I am a huge fan of variant covers. That's what I have behind me. It's all variant covers.
I know there's so many good ones. They have like Matino ones and Tyler Kirkman, and
I'm gonna have to grab all of those.
Oh, it's insane, dude. It's like a whole box. They've got Harley ones, and they have like. Greg Capullo.
That Harley one is creepy.
Out of control. Everyone loves drawing these Robins, by the way, who will be in it later too. They're not in the first couple issues. But. So I don't know. What would I spoil that I haven't spoiled already with issue 1? I think one thing I'll spoil is that James Jr., who is in Black Mirror, is a big part of the story, and he comes in issue 2. Penguin plays a big part. A lot of the villains are in it. The Arkham villains come in. Mr. Freeze is in. There's a lot of sort of cameos. And I think above all, what I would just say is that this is the kind of book that you dream of getting to do. This character has been in my head a very long time. I'll say that. Like long before Metal, when we were doing Joker. There were moments when I got frustrated because I felt like I love this character. He's my favorite villain, and I try and write him like the devil to Batman. But there's still things that feel wrong for him because he has his codes and his things. And I wanted a character that would just be the great white shark of the DCU. And with this character, it just allows you to go to places that are really speak to your greatest fears, about these heroes, about the world, about yourself. And so to get to do that with Jock and with Dave, the guys that were the first people to ever take a chance on me. Jock was a big star artist when I was nobody, and not to go down memory lane, but I remember I had the idea for Black Mirror, and I was like, I told the editor on Batman, Mike Martz, or Detective, can I work with Jock? And he's like, Jock is never going to work with you. He has like a million movie deal things, and but if you can get him, you can do it, but you're never going to get him. And I was like. And
his artwork's incredible.
I paid my way to San Diego just to meet Jock. And I remember I was like, Jock, I have this idea. I know you don't know me, but can we we went to a bar. And I remember I pitched him to Black Mirror. He's a big Englishman. He's awesome. But I was drinking with him, and I remember drinking and being like, if I don't keep up with him, he's going to think I'm a total wimp and not Batman-like at all. And so I'm like, drinking with him, and I'm like, and then James Jr., and then this and that. And at the very end, he was like, well, I like it. Let's do it. That's like my terrible accent sound, Russian or something. And I remember going back and I typed Mike Martz an email, and I'm like, guess what, Mike? I was like, Jock is in, and I fell asleep, passed out with like my hand on the end, and it was like in. But to make that story, to the point of that story to me is that these guys that I'm working with now were already big, relevant artists, and they were the people that took a chance on me when I was nobody. And so I've tried to reserve my working with them for very special projects because they're special people to me. And this one is one that I really want to stand with my best stuff, sincerely. I mean, I might miss. You always, when you...
Well, issue 1's incredible.
Thanks. I mean, when we're trying to take a risk and do something different that goes beyond the parameters of normal Batman horror and mystery and that stuff. And, it's always the kind of stuff you can fall on your face with, or you can make something that, you're deeply proud of. And with this one, I'm really hoping it's the latter, because we're giving it everything we have. So I would just, above all, just say thank you to people. I mean, for giving it a chance and giving me the opportunity to do it, because getting to write characters you make up against your favorite character with your best friends in that way it's a dream job, and I really owe it to everybody out there. So it sounds hokey, but I mean it.
Yeah. I mean, that's incredible, and it's good that you recognize like everything. I don't know how to word it, but you know what I'm saying. I'm sure everyone appreciates that.
I honestly know we all say it, but we feel that. I mean, I talked to Jason Aaron and Dan Slott. Like, we're all friends, and it's not lost on us how lucky we are to do this and how many people would kill us for our jobs. So when you get to do it in this way, in particular, where you're working with people that you really genuinely love. I mean, Jock and I. He seemed, when I met him, we didn't have, our second kid, and he didn't have his second kid, and we're real friends, the same way Capullo and I are real friends. So you guys give me the opportunity to go out there and work with people I love on projects that I've been hoping to do for a long time, and this one is one of those. I mean, all of it is. Like, Justice League is a dream project too. But sometimes you do one that's a concentrated blast of like everything that you've been wanting to do for a little while about something that's been on your mind, like witches or this or particular issues of Batman or art. And this is one of those for me. This is like an attempt to do something really penetrating, and I want it to be worth all the hoopla that DC puts behind it, not for the hype and the plot. And there will be big repercussions and all that, but because I want you to read it and be like, that really scared me, that really took me to a place I did not expect with Batman, and it made me think, and it made me feel differently about some of the stuff that I thought I was secure about with him. Well,
if anybody wants to find you after this, Scott, where can they find you? I know you got a YouTube channel that you've been working on. You've also got your Twitter, which you do track quite frequently, from what I've seen.
I do, yeah. I'm pretty active on there. I try and stay. I've been, family stuff is ramping up, so it's been a bit hard, especially around the holidays. But I started a YouTube channel where I'm doing like little craft videos and interviewing some of my buddies, and just doing it for fun. And I am on Twitter at @Snyder1835. I'm a big Elvis fan. It's Elvis's birthday, January 8th, 1935. That's the secret of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I'm on Facebook. I'm really easy. My DMs are open. I try and be accessible to people, and I'm always happy to hear from everybody. So, I just, again, I'm here, and I appreciate everybody giving us a chance with this one and with everything we've been doing. I mean, the support behind Justice League too has been great. And, I really hope they like what we have coming up in all of the books, because I can tell you after this summit, Bendis, Tom, Josh Williamson, Tom King, Josh Williamson, James Tynan, Kelly Sue, the stuff planned, G. Willow, we really have a lot of good stuff coming. I really hope people have a good time with what we have coming up.
That's awesome. And I'll make sure all the links are down below. I also link the digital version and a physical version of The Batman Who Laughs. So anybody who's watching this, I'm looking through a camera for the audience. Anybody who's watching this can easily click it and go get yourself a copy of the book. I'm going to get myself all of those variants. You're going to see them behind me on the wall for the intros. You're going to have that real soon. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and let us know in the comments down below what you thought about The Batman Who Laughs and what you thought about just Scott Snyder's direction on everything that is going on with this. that's pretty much it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and go visit him on Twitter. See you later.
Yeah, and I sent you, just to spoil more stuff, I forgot.
Okay.
I sent you a couple images that nobody's seen yet from Batman Who Laughs #2, which the mystery about sort of dead Bruce Wayne showing up continue, and it opens with I'm just going down a spoiler rabbit hole because why not, right? It's
okay.
I just love that. I swear to God, the fact that my bosses are all on a plane and can't stop me is like my happiest joy. But they basically a woman is driving in Gotham, and all of a sudden a Bruce Wayne falls out of the sky onto her car and smashes it, and he's like in his 60s, and the next scene is kind of Harvey and Jim Gordon investigating, and Jim Gordon is talking to Harvey about it. It's so strange. Why are these Bruce Waynes showing up? And then he's like, what also is strange is he's like, I know Harvey is is in the hospital for a hernia, but nobody knows it because he's so embarrassed that he has a hernia. So he's like, usually you're a little bit better at this disguise stuff, Batman. What's going on? And so you realize that Harvey is actually Batman investigating there. And because he's starting to devolve because of it, he's just starting to lose all of his sharpness. Like his disguises aren't as good. His detection isn't as good. And he's just, so I sent you a couple pages from that too, just to give you a sense, because the tone and the sort of noirish elements, I think the art team is just killing it. I'm really grateful to them. So
We'll definitely put those up so you guys can enjoy it. And thank you so much for watching the video.